I think they got the message.
As much as we can do.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out on this not very nice night. We're here to talk about martinis. My name is Richard Ehrlich. I'm a longtime member of the Guild and a big-time cocktail fan, and especially martini fan. Does anyone else drink martinis? Yeah. Okay. You're not allowed to make any comments when I say really stupid things, okay? Okay, martinis. I'm not here to talk about blackberry martinis or Morris bar martinis or espresso martinis or anything of that kind. A lot of these drinks that call themselves martinis are really just flavored vodka, and vodka is a very good thing, but they are not martini. They're merely served in a martini glass. They can be good drinks, but they're not martinis. What I'm talking about tonight is the fundamentals of the martini. With food too. You have to understand the fundamentals before you start sort of futzing around with the funny stuff. And with martinis, the greatest and simplest, but also in a way most difficult of cocktails to make just right, and any bartender will tell you that. There are 4 fundamentals, and I'm going to go through them one by one. Number 1, obviously, is gin. You can't use supermarket gin for a martini. Some of those gins sold by the supermarkets under their own labels are very good for a gin and tonic, and I have nothing against them. For a really good martini, you have to have a really good gin. It has to be at least 40% alcohol. Don't tell me why, but the difference between 40 and 37.5% is enormous. It's just the weight of the drink, the sort of the substance of the drink. So it has to be a good one. What is a good gin? A good gin can be made on artisan levels, and we're seeing a lot of that nowadays, but it can also be made on vast industrial levels. And in my personal opinion, while I admire many of the sort of small artisan, whatever you want to call them, gins, they can cost around twice as much as a bottle of, say, Tanqueray or Beefeater, and I don't think you're getting twice as much quality for your money. So in my opinion, you can have a lifetime of martini drinking with Tanqueray, Beefeater, and Plymouth. Those 3, as long as you have one of those 3 and good vermouth and you're making it well, you're going to get a good drink, okay? Again, I do like some of the smaller ones. 2 that I particularly like are Broker's and Sipsmith. Broker's is very high quality and not that expensive. So if you want to buy a fancy gin, as it were, that's the one that I would point you in the direction of. Okay, vermouth. Again, there's lots of new and really interesting vermouth being made nowadays. Much more interested in vermouth as a drink on its own, and that interest is fully justified because vermouth can be fantastically good. If you want a low alcohol aperitif, a little bit of really classy vermouth, really good vermouth, excuse me, in a tall glass with fizzy water and lots of ice and a slice of lime or lemon, that's your friend. It can be lower in alcohol ABV than beer. But in a martini, what we need, we don't really need very much. There are very characterful vermouths. Some of the new ones are very characterful. They aren't needed in a martini. For a martini, you really, as every bartender will tell you, you don't really need to go beyond the famous one, dry martini. Neuilly Prat is another slightly more exotic one, but hardly exotic. And that is probably marginally my favorite, but there isn't much in it between that and dry martini. One of the, and we've got martini tonight. And if you have a favorite vermouth, use that. Use whatever you have at home, if you're making them at home. Okay, number 3, fundamental garnish, obviously. You've got one of the classics in the glass in front of you, a twist of lemon. You can also use orange, and that actually makes a really, really good martini. Try it that way sometime. The person who taught me how to make martinis used orange, and I learned to love it. And then the other alternative, the main alternative, obviously, is an olive. And we'll be getting some olives to munch on, and if you want to, there won't really be room for it in your drink, but some people love to have an olive in their martini, and I love it too. I never ordered them anymore. I always get lemon, but if somebody wants to give me an olive in the drink, hello, welcome. Grab a glass.
Oh, great. Thank you.
As long as it's a really good olive, it's a fine thing. At some bars, they make special effort to find the perfect olive for their martinis. These are olives that you would happily eat, just on their own. But in the drink, they make it. They transform the martini. Really worth having. Okay, now while we're talking about lemons, people talk about having a twist of lemon like that. That isn't really what you want to do with your lemon, and you'll be trying this at home later on. The part of the lemon that you really want in your drink is the aromatic oil, which is stored in little capsules under the skin. So when you're putting the lemon in your drink, what you want to do is quickly snap the lemon between your fingers. Maybe the light will pick this up. Did you see that? Yeah. Too far away. A fine spray of lemon oil goes onto the surface of the drink, and that's where the flavor comes from. So you'll be trying it in a little while when I shut up and let you start drinking. Okay, the fourth fundamental, and I actually refer to it as an ingredient in martinis, is cold. Cold is so important to a martini that you can call it an ingredient. You can't make a good martini unless it is very, very cold. And that's why the gin should be kept in the freezer. Ideally kept in the freezer. In some some good bars, they'll keep the martini at ambient temperature, the gin at ambient temperature, and then pour it over ice in a goblet or a shaker, and stir it up, and that makes it very, very cold. It also causes more dilution of the gin, which some people don't want to have. So I would say, especially when you're doing it at home, gin in the freezer. No substitute for that. And that's true even if you like martinis on the rocks. And I know that some people would regard a martini on the rocks as a terrible thing, but they're wrong. It's also good to have the right glassware. You all know what a martini glass looks like. It's the classic inverted cone on a stem. Those are very good if you drink your martinis straight up. If you don't, if you have them on the rocks, you can use other glasses. You can use a tumbler. You can use a wine glass. That's what I use at home usually. And even if you are drinking it straight up, you don't need one of those big martini glasses. You can have a tiny little glass like this. And obviously that does not hold very much martini, but that means you can have a second and a third. So very good choice. If you have, a lot of people, they buy them at junk shops, they get left them by, whatever. Very good for martinis, as long as it has a stem, so the warmth from your fingertips doesn't warm the bowl. Okay, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. Okay, those are the fundamentals. The big question: how much vermouth do you put in? And there are many different ways of answering that question. There's a relatively recently in martini history, like in the last 50 years or so, the very dry martinis become like the orthodoxy. That's what they drink. What they drink in Mad Men. And I think my personal view hunches that there's kind of machismo thing about it, that men think that vermouth is for girls, vermouth is for sissies. So you get some of the idiocies that are spoken. Winston Churchill said that when he made martinis, he sloshed gin into a pitcher full of ice, turned briefly in the direction of France, and then poured his drink. Noel Coward waved his glass in the direction of Italy. I guess he liked their vermouth better. Alfred Hitchcock looked at the bottle of vermouth from the other side of the room, but never poured from it. He just looked at it. This is crazy. It's silly. A martini has to have vermouth in it, otherwise it's not a martini. It's an aromatic cocktail in which a base spirit is given flavor and aroma by a very small quantity of another addition. It can be bitters in other cocktails. In this case, it's vermouth. If you don't put vermouth in, you're not drinking a martini. But proportions, and this is the big question. Who here likes very dry martinis? So do you have any idea how much you put in when you make it yourself?
I do.
Any idea what are the proportions?
I'm not telling you.
Go on.
I'd probably put a triple measure of gin, about 75 mils, and then maybe just a teaspoon of martini, or even just coat the glass and throw it.
Right. Okay. That's very dry, and that is one way to make a martini. And a martini made that way can be really great. But it depends solely on your personal preference. Nothing else matters. So if somebody, if you like 4-to-1, and a lot of people do, and that's the way martinis used to be made. They weren't these incredibly powerful dry martinis. If that's what you like, do it that way. Tonight, we're going to be looking at two different ways, two different proportions. One stronger and one weaker. I'm not going to tell you the proportions until we've started tasting, but this should show you pretty graphically what the difference is between dry and not so dry. Now, does anyone know Duke's Hotel in St. James's?
Yeah.
Most expensive drinks on earth.
£20.50 for the martini. £20.50.
Is that what it is now?
That's what it is.
I haven't been there in a few years, so I don't know. Last time I was there, it was 19. They make fantastic martinis there with great ceremony. They bring you tell them what kind of gin you want, and they bring over a tray and they make it in front of you, and it's a wonderful thing. But their martini, the Duke's Martini, is they fill this bathtub-sized glass full of gin, and then they put in a drop of vermouth. And I love drinking these things. But it's not actually my preferred martini anymore. So tonight you'll get to decide what your preferred martini is. And again, two different ratios we'll be having tonight, and you will get to decide what you like better. Okay? So I can now shut up briefly. I love watching people talking while they're drinking martinis. That's what it's for. But we have. I'll try to get through it as quickly as I can. Has everyone drunk all or most of their drink?
Yeah.
Show of hands. Who likes it? Who dislikes it? And be honest, I'm not taking any of this personally. Yeah? Oh. Yeah, comments. What was that? Quite strong. Right. Who else found it very strong? Yeah. Sorry?
It kind of felt like it got a bit weaker as you drank it. It's because you're numb.
That's interesting.
The first sip was strong and then it felt less strong as you drank it.
I suppose it's possible that the vermouth, which is a bit heavier than the gin, settled to the bottom. It's possible. Okay, and for those of you who drink martinis, is this roughly speaking what you expect a martini to be?
Yeah, roughly speaking.
Yeah. Okay.
Roughly speaking, it's what I expect a good martini to be.
I like that. Okay. So no one really hated it, huh?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
There was a mixture. Was it supposed to be a mixture?
This is a very dry martini, and there's a bit left. So at the end, when we've swum our way through the second,
It tastes like straight gin. It was with wheat.
I mixed it myself. I mean,
Oh, I see. So even though it was one bottle, it was, so what was it, like 99% gin and...
do you want to know the number now?
Yeah.
No, I would rather wait until you've had the second one, okay? All right, so is anyone ready for another one? I used to do the they sell it upstairs. I used to do these sessions at the Abergavenny Food Festival a lot, and one year I said, "Is there anybody who didn't like their drink?" And one woman raised her hand, and I said, "Oh, you didn't like the drink? You know what was wrong with it?" And she said, "I don't like gin." So I said to her, "A vegetarian doesn't go to a steakhouse. You know, what can I say?" Very strange. Anyway, do you want to see this again? Yes. Okay. Hold it like that, with your fingers above the piece of zest,
Like that.
with the skin side down. Okay, and then as fast as you can, put all your fingers, bring your fingers together so it goes like that. Okay?
You're snapping it along the length, right?
Along the length. Yeah. Okay. And we've got a bit more unzested lemon here. If anyone wants to try it again, I will happily cut extra pieces. Okay? All right, Sylvie's one to the first one. So a little less than half. Or hands up again. I want to do an actual count. Hands up. No, it's about half. Yeah, a little less than half. And obviously the rest of you prefer the first one.
Yes.
Did
Close. Well, I bet.
close? Did anyone?
Time of year.
What's that? Sorry.
Depending on the time of year.
The time of year. Yeah. Did anyone prefer? Did anyone really prefer one over the other? Who greatly preferred A, the first one? Greatly preferred.
I think
Okay.
I did, yeah.
Greatly preferred. Okay. And who greatly preferred B, the second one? Right. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Every group is different, and I wonder whether, because you're all food professionals, food and drink professionals, that makes a difference. Anyway. Do you want me to tell you what the proportion is? Okay, the first one was 10-1.
Whoa.
which makes it very dry. What did you say, Anthony? Patrick? Your measure.
Yeah,
you used two
75
measures,
mils of gin and
so a
various
triple
pieces.
measure.
Yeah.
That's even drier than this.
Yeah, 75 to 5, yeah.
Yeah, that's 15. 15-1. Yeah.
Is that a good number?
That is sometimes called the Montgomery Martini,
Oh, really?
because the story goes anyway that Field Marshal Montgomery didn't like to go into battle unless the troop ratio was 15 on his side to 1 on the enemy side. Ernest Hemingway said that's true. He sometimes told the truth. Okay, and the second one was 6-1. Okay. Now, usually when I did this in Abergavenny, and I did martinis, 3 or 4 years, most people preferred the weaker drink. But here, there's a lot of love for the stronger one, and that's great. As I say, there is no.
That's food writers.
There is no. There's no perfect way to make a martini as long as you get the 4 fundamentals right, and then just make it the way you like. You're going to be having a good drink. I'll just wrap up a few little bits and pieces. When I drink martinis at home, which I do usually never before 10 o'clock in the morning. I make them with loads of ice in a Paris goblet, which I don't use for wine, but I do use for martinis. I drink very, very slowly. So if I have a martini straight up at home, especially if I'm like cooking dinner and so forth, the drink is going to warm up. And I often make it with a twist of orange. That's a very good home martini using glassware that everyone has.
I am annoyed by the fact that comparing two different drinks or two different foods, that one of them must be better than the other one. Not just different, but better.
Well, I mean, it's something like, is there anyone who prefers lumpfish roe to caviar? Yeah. There's a clear, unmistakable quality difference. This is a matter of personal preference. I would say, and anyone who says, "Oh God, you're putting way too much vermouth in that," or Winston Churchill and so forth. FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was a martini hound, and you can see his martini kit at the museum at his home in Hyde Park, New York. He drank them at 4-1, and that's not, everyone has their own way. Julia Child's martini was a reverse martini. She'd put the vermouth in the glass and then put a little bit of gin in, and other people have done that too. It's a lovely drink, and obviously it's not as strong as a full bore martini. No one's asked me about shaking. That's interesting. Usually, when I'm at Narragansett, I'm like three minutes in, and somebody raises their hand and says, "Should you shake or stir?" You all know about where the idea of shaking came from. James Bond in Casino Royale, he ordered what he came to call a Vesper Martini, which is actually a really great drink, which was 2 or 3 parts gin, 1 part vodka, half a part of a drink which is no longer made called Kina Lillet. There is a Lillet, but it's not that formulation. And he wanted it shaken. No good bartender will ever want to shake a martini for you. There's a very simple reason for this. We talked about dilution before.
Yeah.
If you shake that martini, the ice is going to break up, it's going to melt, and the drink will be much weaker than it is supposed to be. Some people don't stir at all, or they give a quick stir with the peel. Others give a proper stir, good bartenders. But stirring is as violent as it should get. Nothing more than that. Okay. And let me just go through a few variations. Okay. I've already mentioned orange peel. That's delicious. Flavored olives can be very good as long as the flavor is not too assertive. A Gibson, does anyone know what a Gibson is? It's a martini made with a cocktail onion.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very good drink. I prefer martinis myself, but it's a very good drink. Putting the new formulation of Lillet in a martini. Lillet it's called an aromatized wine. It's wines from Bordeaux. There's a white and a red. We're talking about the white here. Mixed with various aromatic ingredients, aged in oak barrels. It's a delicious drink on its own. Not as popular as it should be. But if you use that instead of vermouth, the drink is changed quite fundamentally because Lillet has a particular character, but it's a really good drink. If you happen upon a bottle of Lillet, I suggest that you buy it.
Richard, I use something from making a Vesper called Coffee Americano. Have you come across that?
That vermouth.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a red one.
No, it's white, but they claim it's as closest to the original vermouth used in the James Bond drink. It's no longer available. Coffee Americano. £22 a bottle. Available in some outlets. Amazon sell it.
I've never. They sell everything.
But
Buy your nuclear weapons from Amazon.
If it's Lillet instead of vermouth, what's it called?
It's called me. I mean, it's just something that I did myself.
Oh, okay, so it's not.
I made it for the first time, I think, a couple of years ago in France. We go to France every holiday, every summer on holiday, and I always buy a bottle of Lillet and just a bottle of gin usually. And one time I just thought that I would try doing this, and it was delicious.
Where
So,
do you go? Maybe we need to name this drink.
to name the drink.
Yeah.
I just call it a martini made with Lillet, with Lillet instead of dry vermouth.
Martini.
Yeah.
Do you have a view?
But I'll come up with a name.
Okay, come.
Do you have a view on the dirty martini?
Yes. Does everyone know what that is? It's a martini made with garnished with an olive, and they put a little bit of the brine, the olive brine, in it. If you use a tiny bit, like from a droplet, it can be fine. I personally prefer not to have it that way, but as long as you don't overdo it on the brine, it can be very good. You know, it's a very good drink. When you put too much brine in, you're just throwing your money away, I would say. Horrible things. And I'm not sure why they got so popular, but they did.
Right.
If you make martini with, no, the question is, if you make this with Nordic craft ambre, which is a brown, is that a martini?
I would never use anything other than a white vermouth in a martini. The ombre, which is a very good drink, and also Lillet Rouge, which is a very good drink. They are great things, just not right in a martini. Yeah, they have a heavier flavor in addition to the darker color.
You still taste more of that than the
Yeah. The vermouth should heighten the flavor of the gin. Right.
Richard, can I ask you? You said it was very hard to make a good martini.
Sorry.
Why is it hard to make? Are there lots of bad martinis out there? I mean, is it hard to make a good one? What do people do?
It's not. Oh, how do they screw it up?
Yeah.
They used. Glad I said that rather than the really rude thing I could have said. They leave it sitting around in the ice for a long time, so it gets very diluted. They don't use the right kind of gin for the vermouth that they're using. There are all sorts of ways with these, with so few ingredients. You know, it's like making an omelet. An omelet is eggs and butter, right?
Yeah.
And how easy is it to screw up an omelet? I mean, not for any of us, of course, but that pared back simplicity can make the drink very difficult to make, to get exactly right, and go to a bad. I mean, I would never consider ordering a martini in a bar that I didn't know. Never ever.
Yeah.
Just because you don't.
It's a rule to live by. Yeah.
Yeah. Very quickly, other variations. The martini is believed to be descended from, and there's going to be more gin in a minute, so you might as well pretend to be patient. The martini is believed to be descended from a 19th century American drink, or possibly a Mexican drink, called the Martinez, which is gin, bitters, maraschino liqueur, and sweet vermouth. I wouldn't call it a variation on a martini because it's the granddaddy. Probably, it's a very good drink if you see it. If you're in a good bar and you see it on the list, try it. My two favorite martinis in London are the Colne Martini at the Zetter Townhouse Bar. Has anyone been there?
Yeah.
In Clerkenwell. In Clerkenwell.
What's it called?
Zetter yeah, Zetter. Their martini is gin and a few drops of a homemade tincture, whose contents they refuse to admit. They always put in the same number of drops, and it's a fantastic drink. The other one is called.
Have to research that one.
Oh, it's great, and a great bar, great place.
What's it called again, Richard?
The
Martini.
Martini.
Koln, like the German for Cologne, Koln.
Oh.
Yeah. The other one is the Marsala Martini served at Bar Termini in Old Compton Street. Tiny little place. And the bartender's the same at the two places, the sort of reigning bartender. And it's a martini made with Marsala wine, and it's sublime. Absolutely. Just heavenly. Heavenly. Right, and I've mentioned the Juliet Picard Martini, which is the sort of inverted one, and then a weird one, except no drink is weird when it's invented by a great bartender. There's a guy named Salvatore Calabrese, who's one of London's sort of bartender kings. And he invented the breakfast martini, which I have never drunk at breakfast, but I have tasted it. And it's wonderful. Gin, triple sec, good quality marmalade and lemon juice. Okay. And it's a really great drink. You can find the recipe online. For the record, the greatest cocktail book, and really the only cocktail book you need to have, is called The Fine Art of Mixing Drinks by David A. Embry, published originally in 1948. And copies are, even though there's been a revised edition published, it's still wickedly expensive. This copy belongs to our cameraman, John Whiting, and he brought it along today. If you're nice and you use dry fingers, he might let you look at it. Anyway, Embry said the perfect ratio for a martini, and I think he probably experimented quite a lot. He thought 7-to-1 was perfect. Many of you think 10-to-1 is perfect. It's all a matter of opinion and enjoyment. Okay, I'm going to shut up. No, I'm not quite yet. Whenever martinis are a strong drink. They can be very, very dangerous, and you have to be careful with them. James Thurber, the American writer, satirist, said one martini is all right. 2 martinis are too many, and 3 are not enough. And if you ever try drinking 3 martinis, you'll see what he means. His contemporary and colleague, Dorothy Parker, had the last word on the strength of martinis. She said in a little poem, she said, "I'd like to have a martini, 2 at the very most. After 3, I'm under the table. After 4, I'm under my host." So, you had been warned. Who wants another drink? Okay.